Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to say welcome. I'm glad you're here this morning. And I'm very excited to have Ellen here, coming in from, where are you, Ellen, anyway? I can't hear you.
Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.
And she's going to give the Dharma Talk this morning. So thank you so much, Ellen.
Thank you, Lori. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you, to see all of you. And I see there are a couple of brand new people I don't know in the Zendo. So special welcome to you. So today's talk is on a chant that we frequently chant here at Appamada, the 4 practice principles. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. This chant is a poetic rendering of the 4 noble truths, the truths practiced by the noble ones. Today, we'll be looking at the 4 noble truths through the lens of the 4 practice principles chant. So much of this talk is based on Appamada's daily chants annotated. And this is a wonderful resource that Peg has written for us. It studies each of our daily chants, and I recommend it. You can find it on the Appamada website under the study tab. Peg's notes on the 4 practice principles take us step by step through how these principles relate to the 4 noble truths. The first thing I notice about this chant is that it's beautiful. For me, the poetic wording is an opening to the vastness and the depth of the 4 noble truths. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding the self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. It's poetic, but also clarifying. It makes the 4 noble truths come alive for me. So let's begin with the history of this chant. As Peg tells us in her notes, it is a distillation and a translation of the 4 noble truths written by a student of Joko Beck's, Alan Capro. Joko was putting traditional chants into contemporary language, and this was Alan Capro's offering. And I'm very grateful that that this offering lives on at Appamada. In her notes, Peg takes each line of the 4 practice principles and relates them to each section of the 4 noble truths. And I'd like to use that model today for our study. So, first line, caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. This line relates to the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. First, we have to recognize and acknowledge suffering. Peg's notes read, all existence is characterized by dukkha, literally a wheel out of kilter, often translated as dissatisfaction, dis-ease, stress, struggle, or suffering. There are so many ways to suffer. Uneasiness, dissatisfaction, stress, and struggles large and small. Even if we consider ourselves to be relatively happy people, we experience various degrees of dissatisfaction every day. This is the truth of suffering, the truth of our common experience. Things simply do not always go our way. So there it is, the self-centered dream. The dream that things should go our way. We should get what we want and not get what we don't want. We sort of forget that there are uncountable conditions for every situation that arises, not to mention our fellow beings with their own preferences and boundless conditioning. We are caught in the self-centered dream. I think having preferences is human. Maybe it isn't so much that we have preferences as that we hold them so tightly. Bhikkhu Bodhi describes the first noble truth of suffering as clinging or grasping. We forget that everything is in constant motion. Everything about our lives is impermanent. Our control is limited. It hurts to hold on too tightly to our perceptions and our desires in this ever-fluctuating world. Sometimes we get what we want and enjoy that for a while. Sometimes we experience losses, great and small. It is human to have emotions. It becomes suffering when we are caught in the self-centered dream, when we grasp too tightly to our own preferences and desires. I remember an incident from my early childhood when I made an early attempt to step out of the self-centered dream. I remember this when I read a diary entry I made when I was 9 or 10 years old. You remember those little diaries with a little lock and key? Recently, I read one of the few entries in this childhood diary, and it said, "Jimmy owes me 25 cents. When I read this memory of the incident, when I read this memory of this incident, when I read this memory of this incident, it really came flooding back to me. I began to remember it quite clearly. My brother wanted a baseball really, really badly, and he had no money. I had a little, probably $3 or $4. I remember how the self-centered dream felt. It felt tight, clutching, grasping. I really, really didn't want to let go of any of my money. But finally, his distress and his hopeless pennilessness got to me. It began to overrule my self-centered dream. I gave my brother 25 cents. And I remember it feeling good to relieve his suffering. And I remember feeling good when I saw his shiny new baseball. And he seemed so happy. But I bounced right back into my self-centered dream and warned him that this was only a loan, and wrote in my diary in great big letters, "Jimmy owes me 25 cents. So this was as good as I could get at 9 or 10 years old. But it isn't easy for us, even as adults, to step out of our self-centered dream. The next line of the 4 practice principles is holding the self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. This line refers to the second noble truth, the noble truth of the origin of suffering. The origin of suffering is craving or desire. Peg's notes on this line read, together with dukkha arises thirst, craving, desire, wanting, including aversion. Instead of viewing the arising of what we want and what we don't want as life as it is, instead of viewing people and situations with equanimity, we desire and crave what we want. We hold tightly to those self-centered thoughts, and this is exactly the dream. As we dream, we forget that we are all connected within a life of boundless conditions. It's just not all about ourselves and our desires. Holding on to these self-centered cravings causes suffering for ourselves and others. In this world of impermanence, holding on to our self-centered dream is bound to cause suffering. There are countless ways we hold on to self-centered thoughts. We all do this. One of the ways I notice myself holding on to the self-centered dream is when I feel shocked and offended when somebody sees the world and a particular situation differently than I do. And depending on the situation, I may also feel angry. So yes, anger and aversion come up sometimes when we hold on to the self-centered dream. But what I find pretty amazing is how off-centered I can get when presented with the fact that others don't see the world as I do. Part of my recent practice is noticing this and how this can cause suffering for myself and others. What I say and do arising from the self-centered dream usually lacks compassion and causes hurt feelings. The practice is to find the place of equanimity within myself. Remind myself of the unimaginable number of conditions that influence each and every one of us. With that in mind, it is really no surprise that we each see and respond to the world differently. This is simply life as it is. If I'm lucky, I'm able to relax my hold on the self-centered dream and respond appropriately. Without trying to practice the second noble truth, I can make a difficult situation even more difficult for all concerned. Holding the self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Which brings us to the third line of the 4 practice principles. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. This line corresponds to the third noble truth, the truth of the cessation of suffering. Traditionally, the third noble truth is described as the end of craving and suffering. For example, in the Khandha Sutta, this truth is described as the remainderless fading away and cessation of that craving. It's giving up, relinquishment, freedom from it, non-attachment. Peg's notes on this line read quite differently. Peg says, that thirst which is arising can be contained. The containment of that energy leads to transformation. I think her understanding of this third noble truth is aligned with Stephen Batchelor's. It's not so much about cessation as transformation. To me, it seems that when our tendency towards self-centered reactivity is contained, the suffering we cause ourselves and others is transformed. It is transformed into the compassion and wisdom to respond to our world and the people in it in whatever way is most needed. In this way, suffering is relieved. To clarify this, I'd like to read a couple of paragraphs from Stephen Batchelor's book. The book is called After Buddhism. Batchelor says, we know that numerous people from all walks of life at Gautama's time not only beheld the ceasing of reactivity, but lived their lives from that perspective. Their experience cannot, therefore, have been of the ceasing of suffering, the ceasing of the totality of their existential condition, for the simple reason that they were all still very much alive. The Buddha himself complains of physical ailments, the frustration of having to run an organization, the discomforts of old age, and the pain of dying. As long as we have a physical body, we will experience suffering. We might temporarily avoid such pains and frustrations by entering into meditative absorption. As Gautama says, as Gautama says, he did in order to cope with his last illness. But once we emerge from such a state, we return to this imperfect world with all its irritations and discomforts. What Buddhists trumpet as the end of suffering cannot therefore mean what it says. Not only does it make little sense, the discourses themselves clearly state that it means the end of reactivity. To let go of reactivity and behold its ceasing is certainly no easy task, but at least it is something to which we can aspire. Whereas the end of suffering will remain a pipe dream for as long as we are pulsating, breathing, ingesting, digesting, defecating bodies. So as Batchelor said, to let go of reactivity and behold its ceasing is certainly no easy task. How do we learn to let go of our reactivity? The 4 practice principles chant tell us, each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. There is so much contained in each moment. Our teachers are everywhere. And a Sangha is such a safe place to learn the Dharma from firsthand experience. I've heard it said that a Sangha is like a bag full of rocks. Shake the bag up and all the rocks knock together until all the dust falls off. I love that someone online after Zazen the other day said that her practice was learning to be patient with anonymous phone callers. She noticed that when she was curt with the caller, it created suffering for both of them. But when she was polite and patient, life was much more pleasant for them both. And I think this is a perfect example of life as it is, the only teacher. As we sit Zazen, our minds become more and more open to the teachings of just this moment. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. As the meal chant says, may we exist like a lotus at home in the muddy water. Thus we bow to life as it is. The 4th and last line of the 4 practice principles chant reads, being just this moment, compassion's way. Peg's commentary on this line reads, that transformation manifests as a life unfolding according to the Eightfold Path, the path of wisdom and compassion. This line of the 4 practice principles corresponds to the 4th noble truth, the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. And the way is the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path consists of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Each aspect of this path affects every other aspect of the path. The Eightfold Path encompasses the compassion we learn to offer all beings. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Being just this moment offers us an opportunity to live life with compassion. It begins with correct view. Do we view the world from the self-centered dream, or is our view more inclusive and kind? Being just this moment gives us a chance to examine our intention. Is it mostly self-centered, or does it include the well-being of others? Exactly how do we intend to interact in this world? Right speech, right action, right livelihood. Being just this moment gives us a chance to choose to speak, act, and work in a way that is conducive to the welfare of other beings as well as to ourselves. Being just this moment gives rise to right effort. It is only from this moment that wise and compassionate effort can arise. Right mindfulness. Right mindfulness is itself being just this moment. Right concentration. This refers to our sitting practice of Zazen. In a way, it is from this aspect of the path that we are able to become just this moment. Being just this moment requires the stillness and clarity of mind that begins to evolve as we sit Zazen day after day. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Compassion's way can only exist in this moment. Where else could it be? Moment by moment, we have an opportunity to learn compassion, to choose compassion, to speak and act in a way that is in the best interest of all concerned. But this takes practice, both sitting practice and the repeated effort of applying practice to the moments of our everyday life. It isn't always easy. Take it from me, mistakes are inevitable. Lots of mistakes. We need each other's ongoing help as we learn compassion's way. We have the Four Noble Truths to guide us. And we have Alan Capro's lovely rendition to help us incorporate the Four Noble Truths into our lives. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding the self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. So thank you so much for being here and listening. And if we have time, I'd like to open the floor up to questions, comments, thoughts. Nothing going on out there, huh? I see Bridget's hand and then Becky's.
All right.
Hey, Bridget.
All right. I've unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Can now.
Okay, good. Well, I was very touched by your story about Jimmy. Did he ever pay you the 25 cents?
Nope.
So how did you let go of whatever resentment you might have felt? Because that's one of those things that happens with the self-centered dream is we form these expectations and sometimes we feel like people owe us and
Yeah.
they either don't have the capacity, don't remember, or aren't ever going to have to give back what we were hoping.
That's a really good question. And at the time I was 10 years old and I moved on. I was just a kid and I didn't remember it until I opened that diary. And I did bring it up to him and told him he still owed me 25 cents. We were about 70. We're both about, around in our, late 60s, early 70s or something like that. How do you let go of resentment? Oh my gosh, it's a big practice. Can you give me any clues about it? Do you have any experience with that yourself?
Well, just recently I was with someone who I knew in high school and we spent a lot of time together and she was a cradle Episcopalian. And after my husband died in 2004, I joined the Episcopal Church in 2008 or 9. And we haven't stayed in touch much, but we were at the 55th reunion. But she told me she'd been born again and was going on and on about how my having become an Episcopalian was totally invalid, that was totally wrong. And I just felt so judged, and it brought back a lot of painful memories of growing up in a West Texas town because I was originally baptized a Catholic and Catholics were scorned in that town. For one thing, there were no English speaking Catholics until my parents and a couple of other families moved there. But it was just that triggering of feeling this resentment of feeling so judged. And yet I used my Buddhist practice to try to just listen to her. But I felt that welling of resentment. And so I was just curious.
Well, I think what you describe is lovely. Just being that you were being there not only with her, but with your own feelings and sort of finding a place of openness and equanimity. You know, it sounds to me a place where you could hear her. Um, I think for me, it's been a lot of help lately to realize how I I can't possibly know everything, you know, and I can't possibly know all of the conditions that created both of us, you know, and which gives me a little room to step back. And in fact, I've held a resentment for quite a few years. Oh gosh, a long time. And it's been gradually dissipating. Someone accused me of something that I, it just seemed like craziness to me, you know? And, and it's really only recently that I've come to go, oh yeah, I don't know where I have no idea where she was coming from with that, really. And sort of able to feel a little bit of compassion for us both, you know? So I guess that's my most recent experience with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. And I see Becky's hand.
Thank you, Ellen. This is a good talk and one that could happen around, like come around again, because it's something we keep on trying to work with in different, like, because it is in so many different realms that we have our self-centered dreams, and recognizing them and so on. The thing I'd like to share is that, as you were saying, is that when we have the physical body, we will always have suffering. Sometimes it gets pretty extreme, and one of the things that the brain does for us is to say, "Oh, this, you know," and will set us off with things that are from our past or otherwise. But sometimes it catches us so much that we don't recognize it as that quickly enough, because the chemistry is there for it, you know, like the pain or whatever generates that chemistry. So I think that happened for me was, well, first of all, this was the chant that came to me very early in my practice as something that I went, oh, you know, I actually like, I was chanting it with people at morning zazen and online, and I heard it totally is life as it is the only teacher. And I broke out laughing because of course it is, you know, it's like, of course. And so that was a delightful moment for me in this chant. And also, when the cancer started involving the vagus nerve for me, then humming and singing was an important thing for me to do. And so one of the things I did was I let some of our teaching, some of our chants come into me as a song. And so I would like to share. And by the way, this chant is now being used in a couple of Plum Village sanghas where they have a practice of singing, and I have joined them, and so I shared it with them, and now it's being used actively elsewhere. So it's just interesting. But I would like to, I'm going to put myself on gallery for a minute, and I would like to invite anyone who wants to to sing with me, mute yourself, but or very quietly in the Zendo, and feel what it is. I'm going to sing it 3 times, and I invite you to sing with me, because singing it, for me, once I got the song there completely, the tune comes to me when I am in a self-centered dream. I may not have noticed it yet, or I may be so stuck in it I can't get out, and the tune comes to me. And then if I start singing it, then it dissipates. It's interesting. I've had this happen a couple of times, so I just wanted to share that. So,
Yeah.
caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding the self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding the self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky, for that song. And I want you to know, too, that I had you in my mind a lot when I was thinking about this talk, your experience with pain and suffering. Thank you.
Muted. So yes, Ellen, I'm so thankful for this particular Dharma talk, and Becky, your songs come to me pretty often, and I just wish that I had a way to access them more easily, like some kind of playlist of Becky's songs, because they're tremendously helpful to me, because it gives your chants give an extra dimension. It's a very visceral dimension for me. And this morning, when I was chanting and holding my arms kind of next to my chest, there were certain times I could feel the vibration of those songs. So I experienced it in my heart. It's like my core was vibrating. And for me, that's a very, very calming sensation. So it's just not, the vocal impact, but it's also a kinesthetic impact. So I'm so thankful, that you're sharing the songs, that I think is just awesome that, Plum Village is also adopting them. It's a great gift, Becky. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Serenity?
Good morning,
Oh, it's cold
Ellen. Well, it's a little breezy, shall I say, but I'm up at about 7,000 feet, and that's what I'm staring at.
there.
So, um, and it's a little early in the morning, but thank you so much for this talk, Ellen, and Becky, for your song, because I really needed to hear it in a different way this morning. And I've been struggling a little bit with people who are trying to control things, which never goes over well, and making a lot of rules and things that I can't comfortably participate in. And so I have a little resentment about being kept outside and having it be like I don't want to be, I'm not doing what everybody wants me to do. So, struggles are struggles. So this certainly helps me bring a practice edge, that's pretty sharp into a little bit more focus where I can use my practices to let go. I hope, eventually. So thank you so much for everyone and for being here and for being a wonderful Sangha.
Thank you, Serenity. And yeah, I hear your pain and suffering this morning. And well, life as it is, isn't it? And you're going to learn something from this. I don't know what it is, but the universe has your back, and we have your back. Teachings have your back. Thank you, Serenity. And I see Suzanne.
You do. I loved your talk was wonderful. It was so personal, and I love this. I'm so glad that we got the answer to whether you got the quarterback or not. That was one of my first questions. But the idea that you didn't remember it until you found it in your diary. I have one of those diaries too that I kept years and years ago. So it was lovely. But also you gave such richness to your interpretation of the verses through your personal experiences. And I think the thing that stays most significantly with me is the recognition that we all are thousands of millions of conditions that caused who we are and brought us to where we are. And you're right that you don't know what, we think that we know what's going on with other people. We're all amateur psychologists, and we're all trying to figure out, oh, well, that's because of this and that's because of this. But we're probably totally wrong, and they're wrong about us. And it's amazing at some level that any of us can connect at all, given all of that conditioning. But it just really, it opens compassion in my heart to other people when they're doing things that bother me or hurt me or harm me. I have a good friend who said some very, very hurtful things to me last summer that I've had a hard time letting go of. And I'm beginning to see it more and more from the point of view of, yeah, her conditioning, her everything, it wasn't about me, what she said. It was really about all of her experiences that brought her to interpret something I did in a certain way. And then I interpreted what she said in a way through my conditioning. So that just gives so much space to think about and take that pause. If we can pause without those chemical reactions going on that Becky was talking about, the immediate rising of the cortisol and the adrenaline and all that just takes us over. If we have that little breath, that little pause to say, wait a minute, this is not about me. This is somebody else in pain, and have that compassion. So that's kind of where I guess that's where my practice edge is right now, is to do that. So thank you for articulating it so nicely this morning. I really appreciate all the effort that went into your talk, I'm sure, and a lot of thought. So thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. And I think we are out of time. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ellen.